After coming home from a week-long honeymoon, we heard strange noises coming from inside the house. We were worried that it might be a burglar. Do you hear that? Someone might be in the house. Should we call the police? My husband, unfazed, said, "It's fine," and walked inside. I followed him in a hurry and found mother-in-law and sister-in-law inside. Relieved it wasn't a burglar, I still couldn't understand why they were in our house. Apparently, they had taken the keys from my husband to look after the house while we were gone. We thought they would leave once we returned, but they showed no signs of doing so. "It's getting dark. Time for you to go."
Oh, can't we stay a bit longer?
Not only they did not leave, but they also took over the living room and started using our bathroom. I thought they would surely leave the next day, but even when I came back from work, they were still there. I couldn't take it anymore. I asked my husband to make them leave. He replied,
We're all living here now. If you don't like it, you can leave.
"All right," I said. Packed a suitcase with essentials and left the house. My name is Adeline, and I am 29 years old, magazine editor. I met my now husband Dave 3 years ago through a friend. With little dating experience, I was drawn to Dave, who was decisive and took the lead. He confessed his feelings, and after dating for 3 years, we got married. Whether choosing a new home or a wedding venue, he was dependable and made things run smoothly. Life was good with him, but I'd been stressed with mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Dave's father passed away 10 years ago, so it's just mother-in-law and sister-in-law who is 27. We kept our distance before the wedding, but now they become more intrusive. Mother-in-law calls almost every day asking us to increase her monthly allowance.
Even $200 would be fine,
she pleads. Since Dave is the only providing the money, I tell her to talk to him, but she blames me for not being able to increase the allowance. I also get lectured about not visiting their house often enough for cleaning and other duties. On top of that, sister-in-law visits us unannounced, usually when I'm cooking dinner.
"Just making food? I'm hungry, so hurry up,"
she says, sitting on the sofa and eating dinner before leaving. Even after telling her to inform us before coming, nothing changed. Since they're Dave's family, I didn't strongly refuse expecting Dave to step in for me, but that hasn't happened. 6 months into our marriage, Dave and I finally had a chance to go on our long-delayed honeymoon. Our destination was Europe, where we unwound and enjoyed ourselves to the fullest, free from our usual stress. When we got home after a week of bliss, we heard noises inside the house. I felt a pang of fear, thinking a burglar might have broken in while we were away. "Do you hear that too? There might be someone inside. Should we call the cops?" Dave, unfazed, replied,
We're fine.
and walked into the house. I hurried in after him and found my mother-in-law and sister-in-law inside, relieved that it wasn't a burglar. I was still puzzled about why they were there.
Oh, you're back.
"Welcome home. Where are my souvenirs? Did you get the bracelet I asked for?"
There's no way we bought that. It's too expensive.
As I stood there, stunned, the three of them continued their animated conversation. Why are you guys here?"
"You're annoyed we're here, aren't you? Houses are vulnerable when empty. We stayed to protect your home. You should be thankful."
Apparently, mother-in-law and sister-in-law had gotten the keys from Dave to house sit while we were away. I whispered to Dave, "You should have consulted me first." He responded,
They offered to watch the place last minute. I didn't have time to consult you.
I decided to let it go, figuring their presence had at least deterred burglars. But when I looked around, every room was a mess. Sister-in-law's clothes filled our closet. Items were strewn all over the living room floor. The living room was littered not only on the table, but also on the floor with all kinds of things, including clothes, bags, remote controls, and comic books. It was exhausting to think about clearing up, especially after traveling, but that wasn't even the main issue. Despite our return, mother-in-law and sister-in-law showed no signs of leaving.
"It's getting late. You should head home." "We're family. Why bother about formalities?"
sister-in-law said, continuing to make themselves at home. I had hoped they'd leave the next day, but even after I returned from work, they were still there. I made it clear they needed to go, but they insisted, "We're family, so don't bother about us." I was still doing all the cooking, cleaning, and laundry. So, Dave and I decided we have to ask them to leave when he got home. While cleaning the rooms, I noticed one of my perfumes was missing. It was a limited edition perfume that is not available now and cost over $300, so it was something I used to cherish little by little. In a rush, I asked my mother-in-law, and she had no idea about the perfume. When I confronted my sister-in-law, she said,
Oh, I have that.
and pulled the perfume out of her bag, but almost none of it was left. I had been saving it, and at least 60% was supposed to be left.
It smells good, doesn't it? My friend said so too. So I lent it to them.
She said it so casually without any remorse that I finally lost my temper. Why are you using it without asking? What you're doing is theft. Did anyone teach you not to steal?
Seriously? I just borrowed it. Why are you making such a big deal?
If you only borrowed it, will you give it back?
Fine, but I used some. So half the price should be okay, right?
I don't want money. I want the same item back.
Wow, you're pretty. It's just perfume. I know your brand. It's not that expensive.
Saying that, she checked the price on her phone.
What? Why is this so expensive? Spending $300 on perfume is stupid. If it's so important, lock it up.
She seemed flustered, realizing it was more expensive than she thought. It was important, so I only use it at home. I never thought I'd have a thief as a relative who'd barge in and use my things.
Don't call me a thief for using some perfume.
While we were arguing, Dave came home.
What's all this noise?
Listen, Ro, I use a bit of her perfume and she's calling me a thief.
Leaving the loud sister-in-law in the living room, I explained everything to Dave in the bedroom.
I can't take it anymore. Kick mother-in-law and sister-in-law out! Don't get so mad. I hadn't told you yet, but we're all going to live here now.
I was stunned by the unexpected news.
Our old house is falling apart. We were debating repairs or moving. Living here saves money, and we have room.
Why didn't you consult me? Don't I contribute to the mortgage?
Mom already started selling the old house. We're all living here. If you don't like it, leave.
I felt my affection for Dave cooling at his unilateral decision.
Understood.
With that, I began packing only the essentials into my suitcase. Dave didn't stop me. Instead, he said,
Running away after a fight is childish.
And returned to the living room. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law smirked as they watched me pack. As soon as I stepped out the door, they locked it behind me. I had no intention of ever going back to that house, so I felt nothing about leaving. I stayed at a hotel and contacted my boss, so I often consult with, to take a few days off. During that break, I found a new place to live and informed my parents that I had moved out because my mother-in-law and sister-in-law had moved in, and Dave told me to leave. I also told my worried parents that I planned to divorce Dave. The only message I received from Dave during this time was an email saying,
You can come back if you repent. They both said they'd forgive you.
When I told Dave over the phone that I wanted a divorce, he first responded,
You're divorcing me over this? Can't you just put up with it a little longer?
But when he realized I was serious, he agreed to the divorce. Things progressed smoothly after that, and the divorce was finalized within a few days. I wanted to end things quickly and sever ties, so I left the house today without any division of assets. Although we had been married for less than a year, the divorce led to concerned questions from friends and those around me. The old me might have said, "It's nothing," and kept quiet, but I was over it and told everyone what had happened. Everyone was sympathetic and supportive, so I'm glad I spoke up. Living alone now, I no longer have to spend time on household chores and can focus more on work. I came up with 3 times the usual number of projects and even offered support to those who were struggling. Though my boss was concerned for me, I was grateful to throw myself into work, as being alone would bring back painful memories and make me wonder if I was also at fault. About 5 months after the divorce, Dave called. I had left most of my belongings at the house, so I thought the call might be about disposing of them and answered. At first, he asked things like,
What are you doing now? And are you living alone?
avoiding the main topic. Although Dave is the kind of person who gets grumpy if you don't get to the point, I had to bring it up because time was precious. Why did you call?
I want to get back together.
I had no intentions of reconciling, so when I tried to hang up, Dave hurriedly stopped me.
Wait, there's something else I have to say.
What? I'm busy, so make it quick.
Can you lend me some money? I'm having a hard time with the mortgage payments.
Though the mortgage was challenging for Dave alone, it wasn't an amount he couldn't afford on his income. It turned out that Dave thought he'd get a raise soon and would be able to maintain the house even after the divorce. However, the raise didn't happen, and he was told future raises would be difficult, so he decided to quit and find a new job. He thought he'd easily find a job with better conditions, but could only find places offering less pay than his previous job. I can't lend you any money. Please don't call me again.
You're still single, right? No one's going to marry an older woman with a divorce history, so you're better off getting back together with me.
Feeling demeaned by his comment, I responded,
No, thank you.
and I hung up the phone. I wondered why I ever liked such a person and felt disappointed in my lack of judgment. And so not just from Dave, but also from mother-in-law and sister-in-law. The calls kept coming. From what I gathered through their calls, they assumed Dave must be earning well since we bought a new house and had a grand wedding reception. They thought I was the one preventing Dave from giving them more money because he himself said he couldn't afford it. So they believed that if I were out of the picture, they could live comfortably. Turns out, Dave's salary was less than they expected, and they panicked, hence the frequent calls. While it's common to think that men earn more than women, I actually make more than Dave. I wanted to block their calls, but Dave knew where I worked. I was afraid he might call or even show up at my workplace, so I answered the phone once in a while. The conversations were always about money. He'd say things like,
They both are spending too much and drain our savings.
or
They both started part-time jobs, but they're still not making ends meet.
I thought if I told them I was also broke, the calls would stop. So one day, as usual, they said,
We need money for upcoming bills.
I responded,
Actually, I'm leaving my current job. I'm pretty much depleted my savings. I need money more than you do. If you don't believe me, ask my coworkers.
After hearing this, Dave said,
I see.
and hung up. As planned, the calls from the three of them stopped. When I talked about this with a mutual friend, he told me Dave's situation was worse than I'd heard. Turns out, the salary at Dave's new job is less than his previous one, and most of it goes to the mortgage. Not just that, sister-in-law had an affair with her manager and was fired when the manager's wife found out. At first, sister-in-law claimed she didn't know he was married, but it turned out she knew his wife was pregnant. The manager and his wife are divorcing, and it's now public knowledge that sister-in-law caused it. She hasn't found a new job and has lost friends. Dave is paying off loans and barely making ends meet. Mother-in-law keeps complaining that their friends have grandchildren, while her children are single and broke, leading to daily arguments. Our friend said,
Dave thinks he's unattractive since the divorce, but he looks so run down and older than his age. There's no way he's getting any attention.
Because I share the reasons for our divorce, this friend is the only person still speaking to Dave. He tells me everything because he has no one else to talk to. This is the friend who introduced me to Dave. I feel responsible for introducing you too.
And besides, hearing about Dave's life is sort of entertaining,
he said. He's also making sure Dave doesn't get near me again. As for me, I recently co-founded a web magazine company with some old friends from school. I left my job and used up most of my savings to start this company. Even though running a small business means I have to handle a lot of things on my own, it's exciting to continually take on new challenges. I used to be hesitant about diving into new things, but thanks to various experiences, I've gained the resilience to overcome hurdles. I've also started a relationship with someone I met through work. He's the kind of person who respects my feelings while taking the lead, and meeting him helped helped me realize that Dave wasn't a leading man, but simply self-centered. After my divorce, I thought for a few months that I couldn't possibly remarry or even date again. But now, I can think positively and want to cherish the happiness in this new chapter of my life.